We've made it to the final regular season recap episode of the season. It's playoffs time, baby. Playoffs. We're ready for it here on the H-Town Pick'em podcast. The mailbag wants to know who were the biggest disappointments player-wise of 2024. We'll get into it right now on another brand new episode of the H-Town Pick'em podcast. All right, welcome in, everybody. I'm your host, Coach Kovo. I'm on the road. If you can see, the background looks a little bit different. I'm at a hotel in Waco. I'm a jersey collector, as a lot of you guys know from our high school football show. So when in Rome, I'm rocking the Baylor Bears, old kind of 90s era jersey. I just got back from the Waco Ale Company. So kind of like the San Antonio Brahma bullpen. Our man Josh, sometimes he'll crack open some whiskey or something of that nature on some of his shows. I've got a drink here from the Waco Ale Company. Picked up the Hefeweizen, was actually my favorite. It's called the Derek Spreckenzie, a word I probably shouldn't say on YouTube, from the movie Step Brothers, I believe. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be drinking tonight. So hey, if you're with us, man, crack open a drink, enjoy. We're celebrating. We made it through. In alt league football, sometimes you don't make it through a season. So anytime that we can, we make it through all 10 weeks, man, we pour one out and we celebrate on the H-Town Pick'em podcast. I'm your host, Coach Kovo. As always, I'm joined by my nose guard, Mike, my main man, CP, the longtime Roughnecks season ticket holder, and the infamous Renegades fan, Nick Beanie. Let's go ahead and get into the mailbag. As I want to emphasize, we're at 109 subscribers. Help us get to 150. If you're watching this on the United Football Media channel, help us out, right? Help us go back to our home channel of H-Town Pick'em. Help us grow. We want to hit 150 is our next goal. So we're going to try to hit it one goal at a time. So please hit that subscribe button. Aficionado mailbag anytime in the YouTube section. I'm an old man. I don't know how these algorithms work or anything, but from what I've been told, the more comments we got down there and likes and all that kind of stuff, the more people watch the show, right? So please, man, tap in with us. Put your comments down there in the YouTube, in the section down there, and help us out. Our question for today came from B Webster 725 on YouTube. That's Webb. For those who don't know, he's the mastermind behind the United Football Media Group. He hosts the DC Defender show. He's just a good guy, man, good friend of mine. He asked, who has been the league's biggest disappointment in terms of a player? Now, on this show, this is good stuff, and I know that the DC Defenders guys like to rock the boat. I don't like talking disappointments too much as a former coach. I'm always kind of hesitant to criticize coaches or players, but it makes for good TV, so we're going to do it. I'm going to lead us off. I'm going to start with Darius Vito Victor, the superb running back, former offensive player of the year in the USFL for the Memphis Showboats. And again, I was kind of joking around with the guys on our text thread. I feel kind of silly because he really came on strong at the end of the year. So I feel silly. I feel kind of stupid, nominating his name. But Nick made a great point. It's a disappointment in terms of the expectations. I think in those last 2 weeks of the regular season, Vito played really good, right? Against DC, had 98 rushing yards, an average of 7 a pop with a rushing touchdown. Against our Houston Roughnecks, 2 rushing touchdowns, 5.2 yards per carry on the ground. So he showed what he was able to do, but at the beginning of the year, against us, 3 yards rushing. Against the Birmingham Stallions, negative 1 yard rushing. 17 against the Michigan Panthers. When he faced some of the better run defense, they really struggled. In my opinion, watching Vito this year, I was on a fade of him. I know early on when my guy J Mark, our Battlehawks fan that joined us, he was talking about DFS on their show, the UFL Gambling Podcast, and he was all excited. Yeah, I'm going to play Vito Victor. He's a battering ram. And this. And I said, just from my experience playing fantasy football, 30-year-old running back, a lot of tread on the tires, runs very physically in between the tackles. I just thought it was there was a chance for big regression this year. I felt vindicated through 8 weeks of the regular season, just in my opinion. I'm not happy that it happened, but I felt vindicated. But then he showed that he's got tread on the tires. I'm going to chalk it mostly up to just the poor play of the offensive line for Memphis. They made Case Cookus, a little bit of a foreshadowing there for another guy we're going to talk about, but they made Case Cookus look like a shadow of himself. So that's my nomination for you guys listening out there in cyberspace. I would say Vito Victor was a disappointment. I'm not going to put it all on him. I think there is some natural regression with age, but I think he is certainly not what I would call cooked, right? When I watched those last 2 weeks of the regular season, I saw some guy that has a lot of tread still left on the tires, can still be productive. I feel like he's more of a guy maybe in a championship team. he's that elder statesman that you bring into the running back room that kind of just helps your young guys. Maybe like in a San Antonio, right? With McFarland, maybe Vito could be kind of that, that elder statesman. But that's my thoughts, man. Let's go to Obi. Speaking of Webb, Obi's got a guy who resides in that DMV, Washington, D.C. area. Obi, who's your biggest disappointment of 2024?
Well, it may not be entirely his fault, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to go with him. This is Jordan Teamo, the quarterback. So here's the thing. Last year, he was splitting time with another guy who me and Coach Cole are familiar with. His name was De'Aaron King. They were doing the dual quarterback system, and many people thought at the beginning of last year, was it going to work? Well, it did. It took them all the way to the championship game. He comes into this year, and we have the expectations. They were number 2 on my preseason ranking. And yes, there were injuries, and we've all talked about how the talent in the league is better this year. But having said that, his passer rating is down by more than 20 points. It was 103.7 last year. It's 82.1 this year. He's also thrown way more picks on. He's thrown more passing attempts, but he's thrown more picks. Last year, he threw 3 picks and 14 touchdowns. This year, he's 15-9. So the decision making, and maybe it's these defenses figuring him out a little bit quicker. And he's only played in 5 games. He's had an injury history. But saying what I'm saying, given the expectations, he was going to be the man to man the helm this year, and it just hasn't translated to wins. Now, is it all his fault? Maybe, probably not. These things are very, very rarely you can point to one guy. But at the end of the day, he's the guy managing.
It's not about one player or 2 players.
And as a result, it just hasn't translated to the wins. I think him being pressured a lot more has probably made him had to overthink a few times throughout the game. I mean, you can see it where he's a little bit more frantic in the pocket, and then he's probably trying to favor his injuries towards the end of the game. But at the end of the day, for me, it's going to be Jordan Teamo. I think just given the expectation of what we thought the DC defenders were going to be this year, and him getting the head job, we expected more. I know I expected more, and it just hadn't panned out for him this year. Now, maybe he'll be back next year, and they'll get the ship righted. They'll maybe adjust some things on offense, seeing what didn't work, and hopefully getting adjusted. I know Coach Kovo and I, we've all talked about how we feel like DC may not have improved the roster as much as they needed to from last year, given the new talent that has entered the league. But that's who I'm going to go with, Coach.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So both Obi and I have elected to go with former offensive players of the year for our picks. And I think that just shows, like, when you talk about disappointments, a lot of times it's not really on the player. Honestly, it's kind of on us, right? The fans, the media. Like, we levy these expectations that are sky high because of what's happened, and maybe the player doesn't meet them. So I just think, yeah, when we're talking about disappointments, a lot of times it's relative to the expectation. So me and Obi definitely followed suit there. CP, man, tell us who's your biggest disappointment of 2024, and this one hits a little bit closer to home. So
yeah, I was like, can we? It's kind of like throw a dart in the wall for our Houston Roughnecks, I would say, as far as the biggest disappointment of 2024. Everyone except maybe Justin Hall, Markel Roby. There's certain standouts that really delivered stat-wise overall, but if I'm going to have to pick a side of the ball, I'm going to have to pick somebody on the Roughnecks offense as one of our biggest disappointments. And right before the season, Coach Johnson, at all the fan events, said we are going to see a heavy dose of Mark Thompson. Mark we trust. We are going to see him ball out. The offense is going to run through Mark. And what do we see? Obviously, he gets hurt right in the beginning of the season, comes out week 4, delivers a touchdown and a win in his first game back against the Arlington Renegades. But that was the last win we ever saw the rest of the season. I would say my biggest disappointment, at least from a fan's perspective, has been Mark Thompson. You talk about Darius Victor, he had a great last game, a great lasting impression to finish out the season, but he was 6th in rushing overall. Mark Thompson is 12th. Mm-hmm. And that includes quarterbacks like Adrian Martinez, who, way outpaced the league when it came to rushing. So I expected way bigger things out of Mark Thompson. The whole team offensively was last in scoring. Very low on rushing touchdowns. They only had 9 rushing touchdowns all year. Teams like the Panther Stallions had 19, 14 touchdowns rushing. They also had low passing, and they averaged 75 yards a game, which was the second lowest of the entire league. The Showboats had a slightly lower average per year. So things that Mark Thompson could have stepped up, could have done. He had a couple fumbles. Overall, the Roughnecks lost 9 fumbles, which led the league. And Mark Thompson had 4 fumbles, 2 of those lost. So definitely could have had better. Anytime you heard Mark Thompson's name in the news, it wasn't positive this year, whether it was fighting with his teammates, the tweets that he sent out about wanting to be and regretting that he didn't sign with a practice squad somewhere in the NFL. Just anytime he was in the news this year, it wasn't positive. So for me as a fan and a Florida Gator, much love to Mark Thompson. Love that doing the Gator chomp, seeing him in the stands, but performance-wise, one of the biggest disappointments for me of 2024.
That's what CP. That's why you're at 68% picking this year. You're a clubhouse leader, man. You are an objective journalist. You put your Gator head to the side and you just call it like you see it. I would agree. That's one of my favorite memories was honestly whenever we yelled out in Mark We Trust and we did the Gator chomp and he looked right at us and did it back. Like that was an awesome season ticket holder moment, But you're right, man. And I mean, again, the theme is I don't know if I'd pin it all on Mark. Yeah, some of that off the field stuff, like it's why I'm a huge Kiki Chisholm fan. Like just from what I could see from that sideline altercation, I think Kiki said like, "Hey man, like get on with the team, like get on the page with the team." Which I love Kiki. We got to meet him, after the game. But as far as the pure talent, man, we saw Mark Thompson is a talent. There were some games where he was dead to rights in the backfield, and he made something that maybe no other running back can make happen. He's that unique combination of size, speed, balance. He runs a little bit upright, I would notice, which is one thing I would just notice about him. He's kind of an upright runner, but no, very, very, very talented. And it's just kind of an interesting departure since it's the same coach, right? Like we inherited the Houston Gamblers. So you would think that scheme would follow. And I remember the scuttlebutt was, hey, yeah, Roughnecks got off to a rough start, but just wait till Mark Thompson comes back. That's going to change everything. And it just never quite happened for us. All right, man, 1 to go. We're flying through it. We're doing great here for finishing up our aficionado mailbag. Thank you, Webb, for submitting the question. All of you guys that want to submit questions, please do so. Put some in there for next week.
Come on, join in wherever you're out there.
Hey, Harry Doyle says, come on, join in wherever you are out there, man. Join the party. Have some fun out here on H-Town Pick'em. Pour open a drink. I'm enjoying one here myself. And our final question of the evening is going to be from Nick, man. Who was your most disappointing player of 2024?
Well, when it comes to picking disappointments, it's pretty easy to target which team to find that player from. And the Memphis Showboats are plentiful of disappointments with the way their season went. So I went with Case Cookus. And the one thing about Case Cookus that I didn't understand the hype before because I didn't watch too much of the USFL. So I was more on the XFL side. But when I actually watched him the first game of the year against the Roughnecks, I was looking at him. I'm like, I don't get the hype. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And then I saw him throw a couple bombs. And this guy has a cannon of an arm. I think he's one of the few quarterbacks in this league. Him and A.J. McCarron are probably 1 and 2, and that's it, that actually have an NFL capable arm, like the zip that's required that you're going to need in that level. So I understand they had a bad offensive line. He got sacked a ton all season long. I know he didn't even keep the starting job for the middle of the season, but one thing that you could definitely tell he just needs to learn and start working on is it's okay to throw a 5-yard pass every once in a while instead of going big, play after play. And I think that was his biggest issue this year. I think he just needs to, start dialing it back a little. Coach Kovo in the text thread brought up a good point. The good comparison to him when it just comes to the way he throws the ball is very similar to Josh Allen. As obviously a watered down version, but a Josh Allen type kind of player. He's just a go big or go home. And it just did not pay off this season. That's not what you needed, especially with that offensive line. You were going to be sacked a ton if you hold on to the ball, and he continued to do so. So hopefully he learns from it. I actually liked him by the end of the year. I was like, okay, I'm starting to get it. I like this guy. But if he can get the, his play figured out, I think he can still be a stud in the future. But overall this year, it's been a big disappointment.
Offensive line, you look like you're on roller skates. We have got to stay in our splits. Everyone has got to come off the ball.
Yes, sir, Coach Taylor. I agree with you 100%. I'm a former offensive lineman, so I don't like – because whenever you go to any high school football game in America, the first thing you're going to hear is, if it's not complaining about the officials, it's, come on, block O-line. It's such a tired excuse. And, I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people that yell that don't understand really what a good offensive line is and what a bad offensive line is. But even I had to admit – and that was actually the statement that I made, Nick, was even Josh Allen wouldn't look good in this offensive ecosystem. Yeah. And And again, I don't do that lightly. I don't like to criticize offensive lines. I don't like to criticize head coaching just because of my background. But it was rough. And I mean, I was somebody that I don't want to say I didn't like Case Cookus, but I did feel like he was overhyped by his supporters and his fan base. He's one of those guys that has kind of gotten like a cult following amongst his fans, which it's deserved to a good extent. But I just felt like he's a little overrated, coming out of that Stars ecosystem. But I guess I would agree with you, Nick, as I watched him take a beating and get back up, and just some of the throws he made, I gained a lot of respect for Case Cookus, in this offseason, man, or this season. And so I would agree with you 100%. Again, we're about to wrap up the mailbag. I'm enjoying a brew from the Waco Ale Company. If anybody wants to sponsor this show, come on. We don't have one, so come on and sponsor it.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.
I'm a big Major League fan, and I found this soundboard here on our StreamYard, and so I'm loving it. I got so many Major League drops. It's the best movie of all time, 1989 classic. But that is going to about wrap it up. We are going to move on to our recap of the week that was week number 10. All right, let me get ready to share my other screen here. And we are moving on, looking at last week, week number 10. Let me go back to my banners and switch. Okay, last week's records against the spreads. Me and Obi, we went 3-1. Oh, my God. I felt so close to the golden week. And, of course, it was, I think, was it a Roughnecks again that got me? I think I'm trying to remember. I think it was the last game. I was 3-0 going into the final game. But it just didn't quite work. But Nick and CP went 2-2. As far as our locks, we all hit our lock, man. So we had a really nice week. And then we went 2-1 on our sweeps. And then if we look at that over the entire year, CP is the man. CP is our man at 67.5%. I've explained a couple times for those of you new to sports betting, 53% is kind of what you need to hit to like break even. The reason is because Vegas, or the book, or whatever you want to call it, the man, the bookie, the whatever you want to call it, they take a thing called vigorish. A more colloquial term for that is the juice. It's essentially like the interest rate they charge you to play their game, like kind of like a bank, right? When we all have mortgages, or some of us have mortgages, a car loan, or whatever, they're gonna pay. They're gonna have to pay a fee for the right to borrow their money, in a sense, right? So that's what they do there. So you can't just go 51% and feel like you're winning. You need to go above 53% for the most part, right? So CP does 67%. That's excellent. Myself up to 55, so I finally broke through that. Obi 57%. So we're doing pretty good. But I've said all year, if you were to tail CP. And you look at our locks, we struggled on locks. I apologize. That's something we're going to try to do better for next year. But it's a small sample size of only 10 picks, but we did poorly. CP did great at 70%. You could, if you tailed CP at 67% and then just bet all of our sweeps, you would have made a lot of money this year. And so that's why we're here. We're here to have fun. We are not professional gamblers or anything. We're just four guys that love this and just like to talk about it. But honestly, if you had tailed CP, and that's what I've been recommending people this year because he's been on all year, tail CP, tail the sweeps, you would have made a great amount of money this year. All right. But let's move on now to the week that was week number 10. Okay, first game. This was our super lock, man. This is the first time we've done it where all of us locked in the first ever super lock of the 2024 season. Just in time for the Stanley Cup, man. That was the Chicago Blackhawks from their run several years ago, but that was their horn. But yeah, we all locked it in. We all got it right, man. Hopefully y'all played that super lock. It came through. It was 16-6 Panthers at one point. They actually were ahead. I got to admit, this was one weekend where I was extremely busy with family. I was not able to watch a lot of this stuff, but I watched United Football Media content to kind of get abreast of what's happening. Jake Bates, Superman, he is human, right? He's a man. He bleeds. And, he missed a field goal, a game-winning field goal. I think it was a 53-yarder. But anyhow, the Stallions, they get the win at home. It was a 7.5-point spread. So the Panthers covered it fairly comfortably, so we all got that one right. This is where we had a split. CP and Nick went with the Battlehawks. Me and Obi went with the Brahmas. And the Brahmas played really well. Again, the Brahmas missed the game-winning field goal attempts to win it. There was something on the line here because this was for home field advantage, but the Brahmas did cover that 2.5. That's a really short number, but they covered it. So we were sweating it, me and Obi were, but they Brahmas were able to get close enough at the end there, and they lose by 1 point. So the XFL Conference Championship game will be played, in the Battle Dome in St. Louis. So that helped me and Obi improve to 2-0. I've just been, this has been my play. I've been talking about it. Like, I feel really good about the Renegades. I think the travel thing that I prognosticated at the beginning, I think there is something to it where their legs were fresher down the stretch and they looked good. They actually went outright. They didn't even need the 3.5 points, but all of us took it. So that's another sweep that hit. And then our one sweep that didn't hit, it was our Roughnecks game. So I went into the last one thinking, hey, we're going to end on a golden week here. It just didn't happen. Just classic Roughnecks fashion. They were able to drive it down, had a play. I think it was in the red zone, but they were approaching the red zone, if not in the red zone. 4th down. Classic Roughnecks fashion. There's a low snap, which Nolan Henderson has to kind of bend down to get it. I think it did throw off some of the timing. I have seen some questioning as far as the play call itself. There definitely was no route over the middle of the field. I've seen some people questioning that. All you needed to do was get the first down, spike it, and you could keep playing, I suppose. I don't know if there were timeouts left, but there was time. You didn't have to take a shot, down the sideline or anything. But it just was fitting, honestly speaking. It just was fitting, right? It just was a fitting way to end it for the Roughnecks. And so that was the week that was. I guess just as we wrap this up, I went through it pretty quick. Nick, do you want to say anything to the Renegades, man? I mean, your season was interesting. I do think you had a pretty good team. I mean, you finished strong. You lost a lot of close ones. Just any thoughts for the Renegade fans that tune in?
Yeah, anytime there was a defense that couldn't handle the run, that's when that offense seemed to be humming along. Devontae Smith ran for 94 yards in that game against the DC Defenders, on top of Luis Perez cooking them with over 200 yards. So Luis Perez is there. We shouldn't feel too bad with that. He was the league leader in passing yards at the end of the season. So I don't think we have a problem there. We just need to beef up that offensive line, and we can stay tit for tat with everyone going forward. So don't feel bad, Renegade Nation. Okay, I think we're going to have a good year going forward. We just need to shore up that offensive line, so we're going to be capable of doing more. And Bob Stoops is fine, CP. We don't need to trash on him, okay, year after year. It's going to be different next year, okay?
3-7 just doesn't get you in the playoffs, but 4-6 does. Just needed one more win.
I'm plugging my ears. I'm not listening. La, 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 la. I don't know what he's talking about. Don't know what he's talking about.
CP, man, turning to you. You're a Roughneck, longtime Roughneck season ticket holder. The word on the street is we're going to attempt to return to TD-ECU Stadium next year. I think that that's somewhat up in the air because they are renovating their club area in the north end zone to become more Big 12, Power 4 football ready. So there are some question marks there, but I'm usually a glass, half full kind of guy. I'm a little skeptical, pessimistic about just what I saw this year. Talk to the Roughnecks faithful out there, man. What are your feelings just as far as y'all going into the Roughnecks offseason?
Yeah,
obviously we lose the game, so Memphis gets the number 1 pick. Don't freak out about that. That's not going to be that big of a deal. But just what are your thoughts going into the offseason?
Yeah, Roughnecks fans, get excited for change because there's going to be a lot of it coming, both for the Roughnecks organization and the Showboats organization, I would expect, between the two. Obviously, the change of venue to TD-ECU. So Roughneck fans are very excited to go back there. But just overall, there's going to be a lot of turnover. I think it was a season of a little, too little too late for Nolan Henderson. We saw what he could do, those last few games. Being able to move the offense, offense could not keep up with the defense. I mean, this last game of the season, we had over 120 yards more offense than the Showboats did. We held them to 1 of 7 on 3rd down. I mean, our defense was legit. I mean, if this season could have come together with an offense to complement our defense, this season could have been totally different. I think the defense did a really good job this year. So there are aspects of our team to look forward to, but be excited for change, whether that's from the top down as well as the venue. I'm excited to get back to tailgating with everybody there in Lot 9C. So it'll be exciting year next year. So look forward to all that change.
Amen. Now, looking at our standings and futures, of course, here are your standings. I mean, nothing really changed of any importance. Just the home field advantage was decided here in the XFL. But I know that last week we're talking about these numbers were listed on where the site where I was finding, but I don't think you could actually take those. And we've been cautioning you, like, those 4 teams have been eliminated for a long time. So please don't buy futures. The site has not been updated. So I think most of these Vegas sites. Maybe they're not offering futures anymore at this point. Your time has ran up, but this is kind of how it ended. Just to things of interest, you should listen to us in our opening episode, like our preview episode. I think we did a preview episode 1 week before the start of the season. We did talk a little bit about futures. That was a time to buy Birmingham, right? You could have got him at plus 300. If you want him right now, it would have been minus 140, right? So the value, of course, is earlier. The drawback is less, right? So that makes sense, right? You're making a riskier assumption, but I think you should buy futures early in the season, and then as the season plays out, if there are certain teams you feel like that are off to a slow start but still have potential, you can see some value there. But I still think it's decent value as far as Battlehawks and Brahmas and all of them, really, to be honest with you. I'm a little worried about the Panthers because Bryce Perkins did get banged up trying to hurdle somebody. So to me, if Bryce Perkins is out, I drastically – my belief in the Panthers goes down. It's been really interesting. They keep starting Etling and then bring in Perkins in the second half, but I think Perkins is the better quarterback, although, Etling did lead them to a 16-6 start against Birmingham, but I think these are pretty decent odds if you're interested. Of course, if you've got him earlier in the season, maybe you got something better, but Birmingham has looked mortal. They definitely have looked mortal throughout the year, but Obi, any thoughts on futures before we move on to our picks for the conference finals?
I mean, obviously we have Michigan Panthers with the lowest odds, but I mean, I think their defense gives them a real chance. Like you just said, Coach, Birmingham doesn't look as scary, if you want to use that word, as they did last year. So, I mean, if you want to still take some futures on Michigan, I'd say that's probably the lightest, like, underdog where you can get the most payout. And then it's closer than it looks, between St. Louis and San Antonio. I still think that it's about right. And I think Birmingham is the favorite. That's going to be an interesting game. It was between St. Louis and San Antonio. But Michigan seems like the most bang for your buck. I mean, obviously they're the 4th seed, but even still, with their defense, it gives them a chance. But it's going to be a great playoff, I think.
All right, we're going to move on. Again, I'll hold off on Nick and CP because I think as far as I know, at least the sites that I've seen, like you cannot purchase these. So we're just kind of doing post-mortem as far as the futures, giving you some things to think about for next year. But hopefully you bought what you bought. Like for me, I'm a little bit nervous because I've been saying this all year. I've got futures on all of these playoff teams except the Brahmas. So if the Brahmas win, I'm screwed. But if any of the other teams win, if the Battlehawks or Stallions win, I'm going to make some money. And I'm a small-time bettor. It's not going to be a lot. If the Panthers win, I'll just make my money back. I'll break even. That's how I structured it. All right, let's move on to our picks and locks for the playoffs of the United Football League. All right, here we go.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
Yes, sir, Coach Mora. I can't believe it either. I can't believe that we made it. If you had asked the San Antonio Brahmas, they would have sounded just like you. Playoffs? Because look, again, preseason. You look at those preseason. You could have gotten them at plus 1,400 at the beginning, and the Panthers. So it just goes to show playoffs. Even those early season futures, you could have incredibly long odds, and you could still make it. And here they are, the USFL Conference Championship game. The Michigan Panthers, led by Coach Mike Nolan, coming in at 7-3. They're going to travel to Protective Stadium in downtown Birmingham to take on the Stallions. Stallions laying, which means they're the favorite, of 4.5 points, coming in with a 9-1 record. Okay, it's deja vu, right? We just saw this matchup last week. I'm high on Michigan, but honestly, for me, the Perkins thing, that impacts my decision making. I would like with Michigan, because I said, in my opinion, the team that is best equipped to beat Birmingham is Michigan. I am concerned about Birmingham because it looked very mortal. The whole John Chavis thing just seems like kind of a distraction. Their defense played better last week, apparently, if you look at that score line, right? But to me, the Stallions have proven themselves over the longest period of time that they're the best. I'm going to just believe that they maybe were attempting not to show their hand too much, or they didn't really rest players per se, but I'm just going to say it was all calculated effort. They're still in control. I voted Skip Holtz as my coach of the year personally. I'm really impressed with the way he runs his organization. So 4.5, it's not like it's 6.5 or 7.5. I think it's reasonable. I think Vegas did a pretty good job. I think if I was the one, making the spread, I would pick something similar. I'm gonna go chalk to start out here. I'm gonna lead us off, and I'm gonna go with the Birmingham Stallions to cover 4.5 at home and punch their ticket to Visit Missouri. That's the big sponsor, for the UFL Championship. Visit Missouri, and I'll go Stallions. Obi?
When we get to the playoffs, it can be tempting to want to take the underdog and to try to say, well, find a reason to say that the favorites shouldn't win or maybe won't take care of business. I'm not going to do that in this instance. I think Birmingham has been the most consistent team all year long. Yes, they do have a bit of a distraction, but I think championship teams find ways to win. And it's for those reasons I'm going to take Birmingham as well to punch their ticket to the championship and defend the crown. At the end of the day, when you're being hunted, sometimes that puts you in survival mode. When you're in survival mode, the best comes out of you. So I'm going to take Birmingham as well.
All right, because I'm chasing Obi. I'm one game down, so I could play game theory here and go Panthers, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to play the way because I still got next week. So maybe me and Obi will go different ways next week, and then I can try to tie. But I think I'm not going to try to beat Obi. I'm going to try to just give my honest pick to the listeners, and I think Obi just got my goat this year. I think we're probably we may end up with me one game behind. But CP, you're the man of the people, man. You're the one who's been picking great all year. What do you think, man? I'm really curious about your take on this game, on this game.
Both of these playoff games are mathematically hilarious, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so the Stallions,
to me, baby. I love this.
As funny as math can be. Okay, so the Stallions have beat the Panthers twice. First time they beat them, 7 points. Second time they beat them, 1 point. Battlehawks have beaten the Brahmas twice. First time they beat them, 7 points. Second time they beat them, 1 point. These two teams played each other just last week, so it's all depending on how much of their playbook they wanted to show the other team. But these two matchups are super similar. And then the way they did the spreads, they didn't do the same spread. They obviously gave the Stallions a slightly higher edge over the Panthers, but I think the Stallions and Panthers are more similar to the Battlehawks and Brahmas as far as how they match up. So it's strange that they decided to add an extra point on top of the Stallions, maybe that favorite overall factor. But I don't think the Stallions are that much better than the Panthers than the Battlehawks are over the Brahmas, if you're looking at those two matchups. So that 4.5 point spread, it's kind of halfway right between that 1 and 7 that the Stallions won. Same with the Battlehawks, but they tended to go a little bit higher on that spread. So for this one, I would actually lean Panthers to cover that spread in this third time they've matched them up. I think that Danny Etling was probably the starter. That's probably they're probably not, they're probably showing their hand there, making him the starter in that playoff game. So I think it is where they sprinkle in as much as Bryce Perkins can go. So for Panthers fans, that's probably not what they want to hear. Probably want to see more of Bryce Perkins. But I do think that the Panthers match up well with the Stallions, and they've shown that in both of their matchups this year. So they can definitely get within that 4.5 points. Stallions should win, but I don't think it's going to be greater than by 5 points.
I'm considering a flip. I'm thinking about it. Nick, what do you think?
I know CP kind of stole my thunder. I was going to do the big one, although I think I think it's going to happen. I think the Panthers are actually going to win this football game. I just have a gut feeling about this one. The Stallions defense looks like they've been losing steam in the last 3 games. And it could just be the fact that they already knew they were in and they didn't really want to give it their all. Maybe that's the case. But I'm just going to go with the fact that, I don't know. I think Skip Holtz is usually a good coach. He wants them to have good integrity each game. And they're just, not performing as well as they were earlier in the season. They could be running out of gas. And I really like the Michigan Panthers. I don't think it matters if it's Danny Etling or Bryce Perkins. They're both good quarterbacks. I'm a big fan of Etling, so either one will do. They're going to try to run the rock on them, and they seem to do a good job, just in their previous game. And I don't think the Stallions were trying to play coy with the Michigan Panthers because, hell, even Adrian Martinez had 5 rushing attempts, and you'd think the number one thing you'd want to do in that game is to protect your quarterback, and they seem to really want to give it their all and try to get that win. So I like the Panthers. I like the upset. I know you're not supposed to, the Stallions have won back-to-back championships, but, I think their dynasty ends right here, and the Panthers will actually pull this off.
I'm thinking about it. I've been saying all year that Michigan would be the team best equipped to do it, but I think if I felt that Perkins was healthy and that he would be the starter most of the game, I think I would go that way. But CP taught me one thing. He said, don't overthink it. And the Stallions are good. Now, granted, they have shown some vulnerability, in these last several weeks, but that coupled with me, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a skeptic. That's what I always like to say to sound more respectable, and so I do believe that the en vogue, matchup that the sponsors want is Stallions and Battlehawks at the end of the day, right? So I'm going to stay with my nose guard here, man. Me and Obi will stay. Nick and CP going to go the other way. So as a viewer, CP's got the belt. He's got the championship belt, so he can throw that around. So maybe he should go that direction. But, me and Obi, we like the Stallions. All right. The San Antonio Brahmas. Whew. Nobody thought they were going to be here at the beginning of the season,
She thought we'd be bad enough to finish dead last.
That's right, Coach Brown. All the prognosticators in Vegas and all the experts, they picked you dead last. And I saw Son of Bum, Wade Phillips. He was posting all over. It's kind of impressive. A man of that age is functional on Twitter and doing a great job, talking smack out there. But he showed those preseason rankings, and here they are. The Brahma bullpen, man. Our good friend Josh down there in the cow pasture. His Brahmas coming in at 7-3. And again, I've been traveling for work. I know for longtime fans, I usually put the score from last week. I apologize. I've been living out of a suitcase this week, and so I just didn't do it. Let's accept responsibility. But you remember the Brahmas lost to the St. Louis by 1 point. The Panthers lost to the Stallions by 1 point. We talked about that earlier in the show. They are going to go into the Battle Dome. So, again, this is some serious deja vu to take on the Tony Becht, Anthony Becht, and the St. Louis Battlehawks. They're a 3.5-point favorite. They're both have identical 7-3 records. But the Battlehawks were able to get the home field advantage last week. This game right here, I am AJ McCarron did play last week, so let's keep that in mind. I'm concerned. I think that ankle injury it's something that I just don't think you can immediately ramp right back up to it. I've talked about later on in the season. Part of what's helped me get my head back above water. I was fading San Antonio all year. I realized hey. My read is just wrong. That's something I did better this year than last year. Last year I was fading DC to my peril. This year I was fading San Antonio, but eventually I realized hey, Kovo, like CP said, don't overthink it. They have good players. As much as I think their scheme is figured out, and you notice the offensive production is going down. So I do think the same thing is happening where the run and shoot, it gets figured out by the end of the season. They're not lighting it up. Although in my opinion, they have some of the best skill players in the league. They may not have Hakeem Butler, just a complete stud like that, but they're the best running backs, in my opinion. They got John Trey Kirkland and Mark Stevenson, from U of H, and so they're really loaded. Chase Garbers did hurt his wrist again, so that's something to consider. So it's going to be Storm and Dormady, I think, in this game. But it's their defense. In my opinion, the Brahmas' defense is way better than the Battlehawks' defense. That's just how I feel about it. And so this is where I'm really torn, guys. I think I should go San Antonio. I see. Oh, Nick's popped open a beer too. What you drinking, Nick?
All day IPA. Yes.
All day IPA. We're still looking for sponsors here. If any brewery or anything wants to sponsor us, it can be anything. We have no morality clause here. Anything that wants to sponsor us, we'll take it. I just it's going to be my skepticism again. I think the league wants this game to be played. The game is going to be played in St. Louis. Visit Missouri. That's the sponsor, right? So the Missouri Board of Tourism or whatever you want to call it, or Commerce, whatever it is, they're going to want the league is going to benefit extremely financially if the Battlehawks win this game. Coupled with the fact that outside of the fact that St. Louis has San Antonio has some really good players, I don't necessarily think their scheme is anything exceptional or anything like that. I think their offense is actually not that great. They just have a couple. They have a couple really good players. I think their scheme is actually figured out by the rest of the league. I think if they didn't have those great players, they'd be completely shut down. So for those reasons, if McCarron is clicking, and I just think the Battlehawks can I'm going to go Battlehawks. 3.5 isn't anything crazy. I'm going to lay the points. Again, playing a little bit of that play that I think the league is going to want Birmingham and St. Louis, and I think they're going to get it. I don't believe Dean Blandino is past taking a bribe. And so if The Rock or Daryl Johnston, Moose, whoever's making the decisions gets in Blandino's ear and tells Blandino what to do, I think he'll do it. I don't know who's going to call this game. I guess Pereira is going to do the Stallions game, and Blandino does the Battlehawks. Feels that way, like maybe Blandino does a little more XFL. I don't know. But that's my pick. I don't feel great about it just because I think, honestly, if we just look at individual pieces, I think the Battlehawks, I think the Brahmas have better players. overall, like as far as like some studs. They have a couple extreme studs, like what's his name, Deontay Scott, or the name I may have wrong, but number 45, that defensive end for the Brahmas, he's phenomenal. And Tavante Beckett, the old roughneck, he's leading the league in tackles. Man, they're good. Phillips, the cornerback, like they have somebody at every level that's a complete stud. Like, D-line, linebacker. So I'm kind of normally, me as a former defensive coordinator, I pick defense, but I'm gonna weigh in my skepticism and say the league wants San Antonio or St. Louis to make it, and they're gonna get it. So I don't feel great about this one. If CP goes the other way, I might think about it, but I'm gonna go Battlehawks. Obi. Oh, he's thinking about it.
Wait, Coach, I feel like I've done a 180 darn near, maybe a 360 as far as. I used to call the San Antonio Brahmas the stale bread of the league, but this is no longer the XFL.
You didn't make any friends in San Antonio. You're kind of the modern day Charles Barkley in that regard.
Right.
Fair enough. Saying what I'm saying though, I think that as you like to allude to, you being a skeptic. I too am a skeptic. I think that the league does want Stallions versus Battlehawks in the final game, and I think they will honestly achieve that. But I think also one thing that they do want is that this game is going to be played on Sunday, June 9th, 2024. You know what other event is going on Sunday, June 9th, 2024? The NBA Finals. And it's going to be happening at that time. Now, do you really think the UFL wants a blowout during their semifinal game during that time where everybody clicks off and goes on to the NBA Finals or the MLB, or they want to watch Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, blow up the WNBA? Or do you want fans' eyes on your UFL semifinal game? What do you think? I think.
Obi, I want to speak to that because I've actually been looking at the numbers.
Yes.
I think it doesn't matter. I think it doesn't matter because like last week I was looking at some of the numbers, like the games you would think would have more eyeballs on it because they're like better teams. They had less numbers than like the Roughnecks and the Showboats. Because I think the people that are actually tuning in, like that are casuals, they don't know what the hell's going on. They're not like us and understand the implications of the game. They're just like, hey, I'm hosting a party here on Saturday, and so I'm going to have something on in the background that's sports. Go sports. You know what I mean? So I understand your logic, and I'm not saying I disagree with it, but I think I think we're giving too much credit to the casual out there.
Okay. And then the other part of it would be that the people who do actually put their futures and put their bets on, they want it to drag out as long as possible. You do not want to blow out in a semifinal game. That's
fair. I would agree with you on that. They don't want to blow. They definitely do not want to blow out. I agree.
So I'm going to take the Bombers to stay within 3.5. But I
love it.
I do think the Battlehawks will win the game, but it's going to be very, very close, and definitely they're not going to beat them by more than 4. I think they'll try to drag this on and keep it as close as possible, and maybe even San Antonio pulls within that 3.5 at the very end, if not stays within that range. I don't think nobody pulls away at the very end.
Obi, you're a scholar and a gentleman. Yeah, I knew that about you since I met you when you were 14 years old, man. Like that you took the pressure off me. So now you went opposite me. If the Battlehawks can cover, we'll be tied, and it's going to come down to the last week. For me and Obi are always competing, right? Because we got that competitive streak from our days at Ridgepoint. So okay, that adds some intrigue, right? So the sensei and the student are going to go the other way on this one. So CP, man, you're the champ, man. What do you think about this one?
I love Obi's conspiracy theory, and I even think Kovo's conspiracy theory is alive about Battlehawk Stallions. Even both of you can be right. Both conspiracy theories can be right.
We wear tinfoil hats from Ridgepoint High School, man.
Yeah. Everybody's conspiracy could be right in this scenario. So if the games are close, they'll probably go to overtime, and the most you can win an overtime game is by 4.
That's correct.
So by the overtime rules, everyone going by 2. So I think the Stallions could easily go to overtime against the Panthers and win. And if they get 4, obviously they don't cover that 4.5. But if the Battlehawks and Brahmas goes to overtime, and for some reason the Battlehawks pull it out and are able to score on every one of their OT attempts, they could win by 4, and you would cover in overtime, even in a tie game.
Yep.
So I do think the conspiracy theory of Battlehawks versus Stallions in the Battle Dome happens. And I think it's a close game, but I think that 4 points the Battlehawks cover, and potentially even in overtime. So I'm taking the Battlehawks to cover that 3.5.
All right, so it's cool. We're not going to get any sweeps this week. So if you're a person who's just bet our sweeps, you made a lot of money. First of all, you're a wealthy man or woman. But secondly, you're not going to happen this week. So Nick, what is your thought here on this game?
Obi's bringing up a good point, by the way, with the NBA Finals. When is this game happening? Is it in the afternoon, or is it going to be during the? Is it going to be prime time? Do we know?
I'm not sure on that one.
I'll check again.
All right, yeah. While Obi's checking it, I'll make my pick, and just let me know, Obi, because that's going to be a big factor for me whether I watch it or not. Because my Mavericks are in that finals, and I'm very excited to watch that game. So, but when it comes to this game, I am. And another point that Obi made that I agree with, where he said he took a 360. I totally took a 360 on the Brahmas. I started off loving them, then I hated them, and now I'm back to loving them. That defense is stout. They're good. They got a great front seven, and they seem to do real well last game. AJ McCarron looked awful. I don't know if it was the injury. I don't know if it was the Brahmas defense just harassing him. But it did not look too pretty. Now, were they going for it? I don't know. Probably not, but I really like that Brahmas defense specifically, and I do not like the St. Louis Battlehawks defense. I think they're going to play too soft. I think McFarland's going to run all over them. He seems to be coming on strong late in the year, and I'm a big fan of him. So give me the Brahmas and another upset win. I think the Brahmas are going to win it. You guys mentioned the conspiracy. I hear that out. I kind of hope not. This league, it's a new league. It's going to have a little integrity issues. And I know people bring up the Luis Perez thing with the XFL last year. So I hope just for the integrity of the league, they just keep it out of it and let them play football and let the winner be the winner. And I do think that winner will be the Brahmas.
The NBA Finals and the UFL semifinals will be played at the exact same time.
What are we doing? What are we doing? Well, I will be watching a replay of this one, Coach Kovo. I'm just going to let you know that because I love this league, but come on, man. Luka, I'll take that every time.
You got your priorities, and you asked about this. Since our man Webb, who was part of the aficionado mailbag, he kind of asked a question, and I think the question was worded, how can the Mavericks stop the Celtics? Which kind of gave me the impression of,
you can't win.
That's right, Adrian. I think Webb thinks that you can't win, Mavericks. So you were a really nice response to that. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about the NBA Finals? Let's take a quick departure, and then we'll wrap it up for tonight.
Well, the "you can't win" quote, I want to go ahead and tag Luka Doncic in this thing because if you get him riled up, I think they're going to lose game one. But like I said in that YouTube comment, the better question is not how we can stop the Celtics. How can they stop Luka Doncic? And when that man gets angry, he gets a couple losses under his belt, watch magic fly. He'll be cussing out the crowd, cussing out the players, and it'll be a fun watch. I'm excited about this series, and I think I'm nervous, but I think we're going to pull it off and beat the Celtics.
I love it, man. Well, congratulations. It's too bad your Stars came up just short. I'm rooting for the Oilers because I think Canadian teams do not win enough Stanley Cup finals, and I know that's their national sport, and I'm pulling for them. The Panthers are definitely a worthy opponent, but
Yeah,
hockey
David needs one too. I know we lost to him, but that hockey horn that you played earlier, I sank a little when I heard that because I got all sad. But good luck to the Oilers; they're a good opponent. I'm with you. I'm rooting on them in the Stanley Cup.
All right. Well, another fun episode. Hey, 48 minutes. So we almost met Kayla and Christine, me and CP's wife, my wife and CP's wife. We almost met their demand. We haven't met it all season. They have not served us divorce papers, so I think they were just bluffing CP. I think we're good. But we're coming in lean and mean here with just 2 picks. This was fun.
Should we lock any in?
Thank you, CP. My apologies. We did not do our lock, and we need to do that. Oh man. Oh Lordy. I don't feel great about either of them. I think that's why this week, you notice there's not very much consensus, right? We had it split on both games, and it's different people matching up with different pickers. I think if you told me I had to pick one, can I weasel out of this? And maybe I'm gonna pass to Obi because I know Obi has to leave soon, so I'll let Obi go first in case he's got to drop.
I'll go Stallions, but I don't feel good about it.
Yeah,
being transparent.
The reason is because I really like we've talked about this. Okay, so Michigan, I like the way they constructed, man. The defense, run game, big-legged kicker.
Yep.
Even though Perkins is maybe not healthy. I mean, Etling is not bad. I'm not saying Etling's bad. I'm just saying I really like Perkins. So they are constructed to do it. I think for me, I'm going to lock in Stallions as well with Obi, just because the thing that makes me nervous about that other game is San Antonio's defense to me is way better than St. Louis's. So I think I'm taking more of a risk, in my opinion, going with the Battlehawks than going with the Stallions, especially if Perkins hurt. So, yeah, I feel good about it. As far as between the two, I'd rather lock Stallions. CP?
I just got to take the largest spread of the game, so I'm locking in the Panthers. Cover that 4.5 against the Stallions.
I don't blame you there one bit. And Nick, what do you think?
CP stole my strategy straight up. I was going to go. It's going to be a flip 'em game either way, so I'm just going to go with the one with more points. Give me the Panthers to cover the spread.
Man, so we just split on pretty much everything this week. So that's very interesting. As always, it's been fun. Keep tapping in with us. Please subscribe. Just tell a friend. We don't have any marketing budget, believe it or not. Everyone watching this show, we do not have some high-powered corporation behind us, man. Just tell a friend. That's how we grow this thing. We love the UFL. We'll be talking high school football in a couple months. Go Mavericks. I'm a Houston guy, but just out of respect for my good friend Nick here, go Mavericks, and we will catch y'all down the road.